All praises to Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Makar Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect to the nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson going into how Yahweh is getting ready to set up a new heavens and a new earth. And the reason why I'm making this video is because, for one, it's true. But what brought it to my mind was that I was watching a show, like a documentary type thing, and it was called The Year the Earth Changed, or I believe it's called The Year the Earth Changed, and it had David Attenborough narrating it, which he's not no one righteous to be following, right? But he talks about these animals and all of these things, and he knows a little bit about those animals and stuff like that, but he doesn't know how much we're going to know in the kingdom, man. We're going to know the true righteousness of what all these animals and all these things do and how things work. But what they were showing is that when the lockdown occurred, that animals were changing completely, were changing, man. Like from people being locked down and from not being able to like pollute the earth and basically live like how Esau lives, all right? The earth was being purified and beautified again, and turtles were able to increase their birth rates. They was able to lay their eggs in the beaches that weren't inhabited by humans, right? Certain birds, they said on the show that certain birds was singing new notes in their mating calls, right? Jaguars that were normally nocturnal hunters in certain places started hunting in the daytime. Deer that used to get fed rice cakes by them Ammonites in Japan, they was getting a healthier diet because there wasn't none of them Ammonites there to feed them the rice cakes no more, so they went back to eating their actual diet, which is herbs. And one of the interesting things that they eat herbs and plants, and one of the interesting things on the show was that a lot of the animals were going back to their natural habitat, man. They was going back to like where their actual grazing grounds were previously, and they remembered where it was, man. It was very interesting. But one of the things that there was, let me read this scripture first. This is Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. So what Yahweh is getting ready to do is set up a new heaven and a new earth, and the earth that we're going to be living in is going to be completely different to the way how we are on earth now. And just that show is a little example of what's coming, man. But the only difference between that and what's really going to happen is that the Edomites would have tried to think in their mind that, yeah, because the earth's getting got more beautified when there was less people there, that means we need to depopulate the earth. But that's not so, because if it doesn't matter how many people are populating the earth, if you're following God's laws, the earth is going to be in its beautified state. But how Esau lives and how Esau makes other people live is a way that actually destroys the earth. And Esau's role was not to bring peace to the earth. His role was to take away peace from the earth, man. He wasn't made to make the earth be beautiful. That's our job as the Israelites. This is Sirach chapter 10 and verse 2. As a judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, and what manner of ruler the city is, so are they that dwell therein. So Esau's a scumbag, right? He's messy. He pollutes things. He don't care about. He doesn't have any patience to rule the world properly. So the way how he is gonna live and the way everyone else is gonna live is also in like manner. So Esau ain't gonna honor land Sabbaths. He ain't gonna honor Sabbath days, right? He ain't gonna stop, like, make it a law to where people don't have to work every single day of the week, to where people don't have to work outrageous amounts of hours a week just to keep the lights on in their house, whether they're sick or not, whether they're pregnant or not. That's how Esau's got this society. No one makes enough money really to be able to even like have a month away, from working if they wanted to. And that's why in the lockdown, all these people that lost their jobs and stuff like that, now these people are on universal credit and are on benefits, man. A lot of these people, because they didn't really make as much money as they thought they did, or they didn't really make a lot of money in the first place. and had no savings to live back on. But there's going to be a new heavens and a new earth, by where that kind of way of living, that kind of paycheck to paycheck, oppressive way of living is going to be taken away from the earth, man. Let me read this again. This is Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And Esau's getting ready to be destroyed off the face of this earth, man. And that's going to be the ultimate thing that is going to beautify the earth, because you can't have a nation of people on the earth that are wicked and that are designed to cause problems, man. Wherever Esau sees beauty, he's designed to destroy it. Esau don't see a tree and be like, oh, that's a nice tree. He thinks, oh, that's a nice tree. Let me cut it down and I'm gonna turn it into something else. And then he doesn't think, oh, let me just cut down one tree and then plant another one. He says, I'm gonna cut down all the trees, right? And then now I'm gonna sell them. He just views everything as a way to make money, man. He doesn't think that nothing's just as should be, just as is, because he's a demon. And let me read this. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh has spoken it. So Yahweh is going to cause for the earth to really be beautified by taking away the Edomites out of it, whose whole thing is about lying. Esau's whole thing is about lying and deceiving people, but the Israelites' whole thing is about telling the truth. And that's what we're doing right now. We're telling people the truth, and they got a problem with it, man. We're telling them that they're heathens and that they're going into slavery, and they got a problem with it, but they're still going though. They're still going there. So when they're in there, they can't get mad in terms of saying, oh, you didn't warn us, because they was warned. They've all been warned, man. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, as Yahweh my power commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. But that's not what people are saying about Esau right now, is it? Everyone's starting to question and look and be like, hang on. So you're telling me that I've had two of these things, but now if I don't have the third one, that is almost like I haven't had two. And then after they've had the third one, then they're going to say that there's a fourth one. And then after there's a fourth one, they might say there's a fifth one. And after the fifth, they might say there's a sixth and a seventh and an eighth. And they can just keep spinning this along until they decide that they want to stop. Until ultimately people say, you know what? I'm tired of keep doing all of these things. How about we just come up with one method, and we already know what that one method is gonna be, man. We already know what that one way is gonna be. We already know what they're gonna be trying to get people to put in foreheads and in hands. This is Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 7. For what nation is there so great, who have Yahweh so nigh unto them, as Yahweh our power is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great, that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which I set before you this day? Now, every single nation can go to the bookstore, right? They can get their president, their prime minister, or whatever. They can go to the bookstore. They can buy a Bible. They can get it sent straight to their house. They can buy a Bible, and then they can say, in this Torah, here's these laws, and we want to follow them, right? But the Israelites was given these laws by God, and we couldn't even keep them just by our own self. So how these heathens could not keep them? Like, even when these heathens get the chance to see that from keeping this law, we end up with everlasting life, they're not going to be able to say, okay, well, I read these laws, so we're going to keep them as well, so that we can be immortal like these Israelites, because we're not going to have these Israelites being better than us. They ain't going to be able to do that, because it's of Yahweh whether you can keep the laws properly or not, perfectly. And that's what the new covenant is. Yet you've got people out there that are trying to deceive people and trying to make out as though this thing's just for everybody, which is not true. It's not true. This is Isaiah chapter 2 and verse 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. So the word of Yahweh is going to come from us. And it's going to come really from that new Jerusalem, that new type of Israelite that is going to descend from heaven after being ascended up into heaven and saved from what everyone else that wasn't doing what they were supposed to do is going to suffer, man. Verse 4, and he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So that's what's going to happen from the Israelites. So just by the simple fact of people not learning war anymore, that means that their time is going to be somewhere else. That means that now their time that they were spending on thinking about how to kill people can be spent on thinking on how to live. So they can put away the guns, put away the swords and weapons of war, and they can spend all that time thinking on how to make the earth a better place, and on how to make the earth be a pure place. So that what I saw on that show, it's going to be even a way more beautified version of that, man. Way more beautified version of that. And one other thing that they showed on the show was that there was certain penguins that normally they'd dive down like 80 meters into the sea to feed their young, right? But then because there'd be loads of humans on the beach, they would wait until all the humans go home, or until there's a lot less humans on the beach, and then take the fish that they caught to feed their babies. But because there wasn't no humans on the beach, right, they was able to feed, not only get their food to their babies sooner, but they was able to feed their young like twice as much throughout the day. They was able to feed them like 2 or 3 times in a day. So they was growing faster. They was growing bigger. And on the show, the baby was almost the same size as the parent. When they got through feeding them, and it was showing like the size of them. And that's how everything's gonna grow bigger on the face of the earth, and animals are gonna go back to the size that they was in the Garden of Eden, man. And how fruits and things like that are gonna go back to the size of what they used to be. Just like how it says in the scriptures that it took 2 strong men to carry a cluster of grapes. Well, it's gonna go back to that, if not even more beautiful. Because the world's never been governed by a group of people that had Yahweh's laws in them perfectly. The world's never been under that type of rulership. I'm gonna end the lesson with this scripture here. This is 2 Ezra chapter 6 and verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. We're gonna cause for this earth to be way more beautiful than what anyone could ever imagine in their life, man. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Makar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect to the nation of Israel. Shalom.